What is this film about? It is telling us how the mountains of difficulties have disappeared again and again during the 27 years history of the college. In their chronological order, we are going to get to know these unique stories. However, the film doesn't tell the entire story of the college. It has a different aim. It is rather a testimony to be shared, as the title shows according to the biblical verse, "Many, O Lord our God, your wonderful works you have done to us." As for the spirituality of the college, if we would prefer going back to the very beginnings, then the so-called San Marco Club must be mentioned at first place. There used to be a circle of friends. Elder, middle-aged, and quite young pastors belonged to it. Regularly, in every 2 weeks, we gathered at the San Marco Street apartment of Kis János, painter and pastor. This is where the title San Marco Club originates from. This circle functioned from 1970 to 1975, not officially and, of course, not publicly, since we were in the period of socialism, communism, but in an implicit silence. Our main goal was to compare the social, religious, spiritual trends of our age, appearing in the global space, with the prophetic statements of the Bible, while trying to get through accordingly. We could take part in several exciting conversations from one occasion to another. We were dealing with the topic because we had sensed that a really deep crisis was to begin in our world, and we were all surprised how up-to-date book the Bible is, how true it is that Apostle Peter tells in his second letter, "You will do well to pay attention to the prophetic word, like unto a light that shines in a dark place." It really was our experience. The results of our conversations were synthesized in a study entitled "Crisis and Seeking Ways, the Guidance of the Word of God." This was one of the threads. Very important recognitions were made, and what would be worth sharing with others. We were also motivated by another observation that later led to the founding of the college. In the second half of the 80s, surprisingly many attended the presentations, The Bible and the Literature, held by János Reisinger, whose approach was the literary historian's point of view. The once called Society of Scientific Knowledge gave a frame to these presentations. We drew the conclusion that if in an informative way people hear about the content and the ideas of the Bible, and not with the purpose of converting and everything is comprehensible, what is more, no need for either former knowledge or religious attitude, then the audience listens to such presentations eagerly and willingly. At that time, we also started a Bible school in Zugliget, Budapest. Of course, in the same unofficial way, only among acquaintances its news could spread. And here as well, over 200 attendants joined the occasions for years. It all confirmed in us that there was a need for an institution, or for spreading such information that shares the theoretical content of the Bible in the above-mentioned way. That was the way when in 1992, when the change of political order took place and we could begin daydreaming about finding an institution devoted to biblical studies, we started to establish our group of professors, mathematics, and register a college officially. This is how, in 1992, the Sola Scriptura College of Theology was established, according to the previously developed concepts. It is our college today, 27 years in operation now. Extracts from the college's declaration of mission that can be found on the website of the school as well. Our college represents a unique color among the Hungarian theological colleges and universities. Its name, Sola Scriptura College of Theology, refers to 4 basic information. Sola Scriptura indicates that the Bible is in the focus of the education, with its being embedded in history, its system of ideas, and history of its influence. It also refers to the hermeneutical approach. Self-reflection and the inner principles of interpretation are essential in the case of the exegetical subjects. The indication, College of Theology, shows that apart from the exegetical subjects, the teaching about its system of biblical ideas is also important, including an outview of the Christian theological literature. Because of the fact that the Bible stands in the middle of the education and research, the courses of the college are not denominational. The Bible, as the general, primordial source of Christianity, forms the spine of the educational materials. Consequently, it is a basic rule at the college to respect the freedom of conscience. This is the very building where we had started the full-time education. For the first glance, it can be seen that the building had not been suitable for the purpose. Moreover, though presently, some decades later, there are nice buildings around, here used to be a slaughterhouse. We could hear pigs squealing during classes. And not far from here, there used to be an essential oil firm, sometimes with a disturbingly dominant smell of garlic. While they were only noise and smell inconveniences, it was a non-isolated building with simple doors and windows, a workers' hostel before. In winters, we were almost frozen. In summers, especially in the dormitory rooms upstairs, it was unbearably hot. That time, they moved downstairs, and these were, so to say, the real pioneer times. Along with that, I can say we were working here with joy. Every one of us endured the difficulties since we felt happy to start our activities at all. It was impossible to move the correspondence course here. It meant at least 250, 300 people. So we rented a place in a building that functions as Congress Center in the Villany Street now, where the correspondence course had been studied. However, the study department had to be at a site that was easy to reach for the students. We could not expect from any of them to travel out here to Herzegalom with their problems. So, we operated at 3 different places. The third took place at the headquarters of the maintaining church in the Zugliget district of Budapest, where we received place for the study department to operate there. In addition to the enthusiastic start, the college had to face severe difficulties. Let us hear how a mountain-high problem was solved. Some years after the political changing of the system, the Hungarian Board of Accreditation was founded with the aims of quality inspections in the higher education, known today as Board of Hungarian Higher Education Accreditation. It was predictable that somewhere around the year 2000, it will be our college's turn. We had known that with one thing we were going to have a problem, namely the infrastructure, for we were operating divided in 3 different areas. As mentioned before, the correspondence course in a rented place in Budapest, the study department in the central building of the Christian Advent Community in Zugliget, and the full-time course and the financial department in Herceghalom. We had known that this division into three, for sure, was not going to be acceptable. That is why we were eagerly looking for a solution, and immediately must add that we did not have any money at all. We only knew that it had to be solved, and we had our intention to act something. Finally, in a really special way, we found a site the following way. Two of our students, Clara and Eva Pintér, who were residents of Biatorbágy, were traveling by coach one Saturday morning to the chapel in center of the Christian Advent Community in Zugliget to join the Saturday morning worship service. On the coach, they were reading a booklet of biblical studies that was noticed by a fellow passenger. This passenger was a retired pastor, originated from Békés County. I didn't meet him for long years, but before we had been in a closer contact. Seeing what the ladies were reading, he addressed them, asked where they were going, and when he was informed, he sent me a message that he had a plot in a very nice location in Biatorbágy, and it would be his pleasure whether the young sometimes would visit and have meetings there, and may help him with the maintenance of the land a bit. When Clara Pintér told me about those, I asked her to find out from this elderly pastor if he wanted to sell his plot to us. Although I had never been in Biatorbágy before, but I knew it was a pleasurable, nice place close to Budapest from the point of view of transportation. They asked, and the pastor and his wife said yes, happily. We were, of course, very happy with it, but it still was a question where we got money from, while an even bigger problem occurred. Some days after this gentle old pastor and his wife said yes, suddenly, in the twinkling of an eye, in a heart attack, this retired pastor passed away. Then it was a question if anything was to come out of this whole situation. Of course, we had to be waiting for a while, and then the inheritors had to be asked whether they were willing to sell the plot. When the agreement was made with them, then the question was from what source we were to pay for it. Again, how particular. An old lady who had been visiting some courses offered and also gave her plot in Budaörs to the Christian Advent Community. From this, we hoped to buy the plot in Biatorbágy. But a further problem occurred, namely, that once treasurer of the Christian Advent Community did not see the plan to build a college too realistic, and it was perceptible that although the bigger half of the land price coverage was available from a part of the donated plot that the college received, but still, a certain amount was missing. On a Wednesday, together with this treasurer, we went out to the owners to agree on the last installment payment. In the car, I told him again why I thought that God intended that land to us, to the college, and that how much experience was attached to this. And finally, I finished with this sentence instinctively: if it is really God's will to build the college here and acquire this plot, you will see God is going to provide us with the missing amount. At the end of the same week, I was assigned for a worship service in Elek, Békés County. And when I appeared there, a couple from Gyulavári came face to face with me. They were elderly people. I knew them well, waving a post-it in their hands, saying, as soon as possible, I should have called at somebody whose name and number was on that paper. It was the phone number of an elderly Hungarian man, one of our American brothers. It turned out that they knew him, who I have never heard of before, and who had asked to be called by me from Texas, where their son lived, and they had met him while visiting that son. Of course, Sunday morning, I dialed the number, and the man answered in good and nice Hungarian language. He asked if we had any schools, for he wanted to donate a higher amount to the school. You can imagine how great my surprise was, for I had just said on Wednesday, if it was God's will that the college was to be built there, He was going to provide us with the missing amount. Of course, I didn't ask about the exact amount to be given, but He made me sure about His will, and in a week's time, sent the money. When it arrived, that turned out that was exactly the very 3.5 million forints, the same amount that had been missing for the purchase of the plot. How did the visit of the board take place? Has the college won the status of accreditation? Yes, because we were able to document the buying of the land, representing the sketch of the building to be built, and they accepted that, but they made a stipulation for giving the accreditation, that was in 2000, that the college was to move into the new building in 2003. We may think that all the issues were on the right track afterwards, but it didn't happen. Architect Clara Pintér is telling us about the factors and difficulties that could not have been foreseen at the point of the buying of the plot. This part of the village, when this construction started, was considered an outlying area, and huge, a lot of things had to be done to develop it for a construction site. Among many others, this area had to be merged from 4 separate plots, 4 9 meters wide, so-called belt parcels we had, used to be used for planting grapes. We had to start with organizing a size of a site where the school was possible to be placed. This even required the establishment of a road, making the place approachable, and we had to make deals with 23 owners to get parts from their territories. That made the ordering of a 12 meters wide road possible. And well, we had much experience about it, for making agreements with so many people was not easy. And many of them did not understand why that solution was beneficial for them as well, because there had not been any opportunities for any construction permits until then. There was neither public utility nor road, and according to those services, more constructions became possible to be made. And in connection with that, we had a lot of experience. How God supported us with making people benevolent, understanding this problem, and participating in receiving opportunity for the start of the constructions as soon as it was possible. The local council also insisted on giving a construction permit in case of making the road and building the public utilities. Again, it was a heavy way for the school, because from the planning till the implementing, we had to transact everything. Most of the bitter struggle was up to Clara, while we further colleagues got from it too. I had known one of the landowners, so it was my task to make the agreement with him. He was a very old man, aged 90, and around his plot there were some gloomy conditions because of a feud in the family. The old man did not live on his plot in their small house in the Patak Street anymore, but they have moved to a village where a caregiver looked after him and his wife. I traveled to that village and rang the bell at the given address, but in vain, for nobody opened the door. Then a neighbor came out and informed that the old couple opens the door for nobody, being afraid of a relative who became their ill-wisher. I was immediately told where the caregiver lived in the village. That really was a great help, and right away I contacted that person. She was a friendly, helpful woman, but informed me that the old man, for sure, was not allowed to agree on the giving away any meters from the plot for the opening of the road, because his relative initiated a lawsuit for guardianship, and his lawyer forbade him to sign anything. Well, that was a shocking news. I still remember saying goodbye to this lady, going out, sitting in the car, and falling on the dashboard, with mixed thoughts in my mind. That was the end of the story. Because it is evident that a litigation like that might last up to years, and if that was the end according to the opposite interest of the very relative, that was clear. That case was a lost situation for us. We were not able to wait for coming to an end. And then I was praying to God like this, saying, "My Lord, you can see this impossible situation. We were fighting until now. Everything seemed beautiful and good, but here, at this point, we got stuck for good. And if we haven't misunderstood something from our previous experience, that was really you leading us. Please help now." As I stopped at sighing in the car, it flashed my mind that there was a last possible thing that could be done, going back to the caregiver and asking the name and the number of the lawyer. I called the lawyer from the car and told him why we wanted to talk to his client. He answered immediately, "Yes, it was me who restricted him, but I see what this case is about. I will go and trumpet in his deaf ears what the situation is about, that he will have no any harm, it is not his relative being the case, and then he will sign the papers in front of me, and I will countersign." I was just amazed how willing he was. Then I asked, uneasily, when he was able to do all that. The answer was, "The day after tomorrow." I also traveled back to the appointment agreed, and the lawyer really came, and he did accordingly he had promised, being a total stranger. His willingness and his support was really moving, but at that point another thing was moving in my mind, how much he was going to ask for all of that, because our college was struggling with everlasting financial problems. I asked him what we owed him. The answer was, "Well, look, I'm not going to make any fortune on this. Give me 5,000 forints for the travel expenses, and that is enough." He lived, and his office was about 50 kilometers away from the village in the Dunántúl. Even until today, I cannot explain neither the goodwill of that strange lawyer, nor his support, how he helped us through this tragic point. To the end of 2006, finally, The registration of the plot, along with the widening of the road, was managed by the Land Registration Department. And the time we wanted to start the works on the public utilities, cooperating with the local council, since it was a huge cost, talking about a 200-meter section. For that, we made an agreement with the local council to jointly apply for the project. That did not happen, and we were forced to solve those construction works on our own. That caused a very long procedure, since we had to undertake everything from the planning to the implementation. Finally, on the 30th of December 2007, we received the valid building permit. The start of the building became possible. That was an unforgettable date to us because we were waiting for that for so long. Receiving the building permit at the end of the year 2007 meant a great relief, because 7 years of struggling had stood behind that. However, the time of the following inspection of the accreditation board was very close, those times that happened in every 8 years. Let us remember that the college had received the status of accreditation with the condition of moving in the new building in the year 2003. According to this, that seemed hopeless to pass the new accreditation exam in 2008. Exciting news are coming. Preparation for an accreditation involves a lot of work, and we did all we could, but we could not help the infrastructure problem that worried us so much. The visiting board of accreditation had indicated its arrival to the 8th of March 2008. We can count that only 2 months we had from the receiving of the building permit till their visit. All our hope could have been to tell them about the unforeseen difficulties, with how many landowners we had to make agreement with, and how time-consuming and difficult thing that was. And meanwhile, we present the long-done construction plans, the building permit, but we knew that in itself that would not have touched them. If we could not add that the construction had started, well, it could have started. There would not have been any more obstacles. The building contractor was ready to start, but we did not have the money. Everything started without a single penny here, and our only chance to finance the building would have come from the selling of the building in Herceghalom. But we did not get any further with the building in Herceghalom. There was no use advertising it at every possible platform, or we had a utility study to be made. Every trying was in vain. Until then, the slaughterhouse was closed, as well as the essential oil factory, so even that disadvantage did not exist anymore. But hardly anybody was interested. Somehow the real estate market was stuck, and we were not able to move further. You can imagine how worrisome that situation was. But on the other hand, there was the importance of the previous great experiences. That time that was almost impossible not to believe that the mighty God was going to provide us with His help, and again, the miracle happened. Around the middle of February, a couple came for a talk to me in the morning, and they had known about the building of our college. The man was a real estate developer, a real estate agent, and more times I had been talking to him about our difficulties. Once, at an appropriate step, he had already helped us in the receiving of the construction plans. As they entered my room, the man immediately stepped at the window, looking down to the plot of the college, asking, And you? Why aren't you building? In such a nice weather, it should be started. I replied, we cannot start unfortunately, for we had no ways of selling Herceghalom, and we have no money. He very directly answered, start it. I will finance it until you can sell Herceghalom. As I mentioned, he was a real estate agent and a real estate developer. So he had the opportunity to finance that until then. But it seemed a very special offer, and I didn't really take it seriously. But at night he called me again and said, I was serious, I keep my word, but announce it without a hesitation at the tax office, because the rule is that a building must be announced 2 weeks beforehand. It was impossible not to take further steps for that. So we announced the beginning of the building at the tax office, and when the end point of the 2 weeks was on a Friday. On Fridays, before the weekend days, people don't start any building works, but on the following Monday. And which day was that? The 8th of March, when the accreditation board was to be expected for 9 o'clock a.m. I will never forget the feeling when that day at 7 in the morning I heard from my room that the machine started to work on the neighboring plot of the college. After so many years of struggling and waiting, there was a wonderful sound of music to my ears, but the question was still there. What was going to happen during the visit of the accreditation board? In myself, I was praying, my God, after these miracles, I only ask from you that if the question of the building will be raised, and we will tell them everything, showing the plans, the building permit, then they shall only ask whether the building has been started. And then I can answer a yes with a good conscience. Just not be asked when it started and how far we got with that. Well, it exactly happened like that. They liked the construction plans, asked if the constructing was started, and I answered yes. And no more words were asked, and we passed the accreditation. Now finally everything is going to happen smoothly, we may think. But the year 2008 is a remarkable and familiar date, the year when the international economic crisis exploded. The building started with a huge dynamism and then stopped. Till the end of October, they managed to construct the big building and put it on the roof. Some data to make the sizes perceived: basement level 416 square meters, ground floor, education floor, 784 square meters. First floor, dormitory, 20 rooms, 2 apartments, 576 square meters. Altogether, 1,776 square meters. The business of the generous supporter was also ruined by the crisis. He was not able to lend any money anymore. The building stood only structurally complete for more than 5 years. There was to be afraid of the deterioration of its condition. That was a tiny ray of hope that, thanks to a donation from a brother from abroad, they managed to provide the 2 lower floors with doors and windows. But after that, again nothing. The college tried its best, support the development even with brick tickets. There was enough to build some dividing walls, but essentially, it did not change anything. The substantive continuation and the completion seemed hopeless. Herceghalom was still impossible to be sold, while its price was something not to count on anymore, for the college owed it to the entrepreneur who was patiently waiting. However, he also needed the money. We haven't mentioned yet that there was another wealthy entrepreneur who had waved in front of me that he was also thinking about cooperating and helping in the construction. Well, it would have been a pleasure in the hopeless situation, but when the building was stuck for a while, he invited the leaders of the Christian Advance community, me, and the building contractor, who until then constructed the building structurally ready, to one of his restaurants for a dinner, where he explained that that was an entirely hopeless venture. I can still remember his sentence, crystal clear. Well, I'm telling you that this college of yours will never be constructed. It only made me partially feel at ease that the building constructor, who was also a believer in God, said he didn't find that hopeless. He believed that could be finished from an amount of selling Herceghalom. Well, he told that with benevolence, for that seemed highly unrealistic. But at least his encouraging words meant some emotional support at that occasion. The hopelessness of the continuation of the construction was not enough. A different kind of severe problem occurred. Peter Holló, the vice-rector of the college, tells us about it. During 2011 and 12, the college got into a fairly difficult situation. Not only the college, but the maintainer, Christian Advent community as well. Because in 2011, a new ecclesiastical law was passed by the Hungarian parliament, and that was unique because the previous law had given peace in many ways, providing a frame to us, and had passed in 1990, that for the church, the maintainer of the college, and for the college, allowed the operating in calm conditions. But in 2011, a brand new situation came. Due to the new ecclesiastical law, entered into operation on the 1st of January 2012, a legal status ended. So the Christian Advent community as a church was not allowed to operate further, only if it obeyed the new conditions. For a long time, the community was considering, that was a fairly difficult period, to either operate as a church, but then we have to meet some serious requirements and meet the expectations of the government, or rather continue as an association. On the 29th of January 2012 was the delegates' meeting that was very tense, but due to the Christian Advent community made the decision to operate further as an association. So we did not require the further status of a church. How did it affect the operating of the college? From the point of view of the college, that was interesting because according to the law, a higher education institution could have been maintained only by a church. That followed that if an association became the maintainer of the college, then how to go on? What could have been done, and how were we able to continue our operating at all? Some months of silence came, but that silence was a kind of calm before the storm kind of silence, for we knew well that sooner or later a case comes up, and the question is to be raised about the maintainer's background of the college. A letter arrived in November of 2012. From the so-called Education Office on the 8th of November, the letter came as follows. I have stated that the maintainer of the college operates as an association. The association is not considered to be a business organization, and from now on cannot be the maintainer of the college. I call the applicant to hand over the maintainer's rights for another organization entitled to the maintainer role of a higher education institution. That call for the college ended with the deadline of 31st of December. There was neither appeal nor opposition to be made. So, we seem to come to an end of our story, since we did not want to hand over the maintainer's rights, but the college carried that question on. We appealed for legal remedy both in written and spoken ways, consulted with many. In one of the letters we wrote the following. We propose that a higher education institution operating in the maintenance of an association engaged in religious activities could also provide religious education, being regulated in the first paragraph of the 139th section of the Higher Education Law. Our reasoning behind the proposal is, over the legal argument that the general successor logically inherits the rights of the maintenance, the following. Both the first chapter of the Ecclesiastical Law and the Constitution guarantee the absolute persistency of the freedom of conscience and religion. According to the law, as well as on a logical basis, the free practicing of the religion includes the right of teaching the religious beliefs. The fundamental right of the freedom of conscience and religion would be severely damaged if in the future a Christian or any other religious community operating as an association lose the opportunity to teach its religious beliefs within the scientific education of its pastors and teachers' education in a college or university. So that was the part of the letter we had written to more places, but that was also interesting and special, that not only in written but in speaking we also indicated the wish for settling the situation. We did not only protest, but were also praying eagerly for the situation to be solved. What was the result? I'd read another part. Because we received a letter on the 13th of December 2012 from the State Secretary, exactly from the major leader of the Department of the State Secretary responsible for ecclesiastical, ethnic and civil relations. I inform you in connection with the problem raising on the 23rd of November 2012 that a meeting within the Ministry of Human Resources was held because of the law interpretation and implementation of the Education Office, and as a result, we initiated the modification of the National Higher Education Law. According to the plan modification, associations operating as churches on the 31st of December 2011 and maintained by the successor of the state-approved higher education institution can conduct a religious education even after the 1st of January 2012. The Hungarian parliament will predictably negotiate the bill on the 17th of December 2012's extraordinary meeting day within the frame of an exceptionally urgent proceeding. So that was the letter. What was the result of that? We can say that all happened accordingly. The Parliament accepted the amendments towards the end of December, and accordingly, the injunction by the Education Office, we have just quoted, was suspended. And the amendment passed with an even more direct and more clear text. Though it was a difficult situation and a hard time, but we were able to continue our operating. All those difficulties meant a huge stress for the leadership of the college, but the education was continuous. There were a great number of candidates in every year. Students were thoughtful and enthusiastic, while the teacher staff was extended and developed. Peter Benkovic was one among the students at the correspondence course that time. I applied to the college for the reason I wanted to know the Bible more deeply. I was raised in a believer family, so I had received knowledge from the Bible of the Christian belief as a child, but growing up, I felt that quite imperfect, and I was searching for the opportunity to how and where to deepen my knowledge. That was how I applied to the Sola Scriptura College of Theology. When I started my education here, wonderful heights and huge depths of knowledge have opened in front of me. That was very surprising to me. Before, though I had always been interested in the Bible and its teachings, there had been a question mark in me whether all that had only been a human fantasy, a human approach, But here, at this college, as I learned the deeper teachings, the creation history of the Bible, it all became clear to me that a human has not been able to invent such a thing. And it became clear that it can only be a God who can create such scripture of a huge volume, totally coherent, representing an absolutely contagious teaching. So on the one hand, that knowledge has been the one that was given to me by the college. On the other hand, what I received has not stuck here, for it has not only remained a theoretical knowledge in my life, and this knowledge has changed my life totally. It has made me a totally different person. The Bible hasn't only given the approach to the world, has not only answered so many questions that used to be open in front of me, how to interpret the latest, the current happenings in the world, what we shall do with our lives, why and for what purpose we received our life, from whom we received our life. So the Bible has turned into a practical reality in my life. Earlier, I had visited quite many temples, churches, communities, and what this college was so different in, and how it touched me, was the respect of the professors towards my freedom of conscience. Earlier, practically everywhere, I experienced that I'm sure they had done it with goodwill. When you had gone somewhere, with kind of techniques people try to keep you there for your sake. And for me, that was a bit blanching, that I was always thinking if they did not trust their God, that he could keep me there if he wanted to. And that was what raised my interest in this institution, that its teachers passed the knowledge. They were very kind, and when I asked them, they answered with pleasure. But they neither put me under pressure, nor tried to apply tricks to make me stay here. But they put the decision in my hand, and that was very attractive to me. And well, if I should summarize that all in one sentence, I can thank my life for the knowledge I acquired here. Zoltán Pranc, from a former student, became a professor of the college. After his previous engineering and at the college theologian degrees, he also acquired a doctorate degree in philosophy and today is a leader of department of the college. My situation is a little bit special among the students, remembering back to the college years, because at the same time, I am a teacher here, and besides, I remember to the years spent here as a student with a good heart. In those times, I am evoking, I was strongly looking for God. I had certain church experience from different communities, and superficial lyricism and very weak explanations of the Bible were my usual experience. I applied to the college in the first half of the 90s, and I was not disappointed, and recognized that spirituality, in the spirituality of the Sola Scriptura College of Theology, was based on sense and love, to show sense and love from the Bible. The whole school material represented a coherent, deep, meaningful interpretation. Its message for me was that sense and love had met each other. At the same time, importantly, from that intelligent and coherent interpretation, the essence was shining through, namely that God is good, God loves me. Love and goodness are highly overused phenomena, but still grounded in such intellect. It was crediting, and that was the final message or the final conclusion of that scripture analysis I experienced at the college, that God is good, God loves me, and these expressions are emphatic. Raising another heartening example for the cohesion of the school material is the unity of the Old and the New Testaments. At other places, I had seen it as a basic, logical thought, without any religious preconceptions or experience, that they had interpreted the Old and the New Testaments in opposition to each other. That had disturbed me really much, and I believe even a layman should have a sensitivity of logic, that if the same God stands behind both groups of scriptures, then those could not contradict each other. For my great feeling at ease, I experienced that the New and the Old Testaments were explained in an entire harmony. Moreover, there was an extraordinary experience that while teaching different subjects, the professors were in total harmony with each other. So what they said, the materials of the subjects completed one another, built upon each other, and gave knowledge of a wide scope till the end of the student years. And of course, what the most important was that the answers to the most important questions of human life were given. All in all, I can say that was good and a pleasure to study here. I am saying that on the background of studying quite a lot elsewhere and knowing what studying means. It cannot be stated from all my studies. So besides that the school material was interesting, comprehensive, another advantage was that it was according to a human scale in its amount. That was understandable, that didn't require extreme skills from students to understand the lectures and to see the light of the whole material. A lecture could be held that the student has no idea where she is, what it is about, just admires the professors for their knowledge, and at the same time, it can be held with simple and understandable language, like starting a dialogue with the student, even giving space for possible criticism as well. I can say that finally I learned how to be thinking here. I had already had a different degree. My college studies were completed with being invited to the board of the college professors. I felt very happy and honored for the invitation. To become able to teach, it required further studies, so I studied at philosophy major, and I had a feeling as if doors had been opening, and God would have been leading me on that path. I managed to graduate with a very good result, with an excellent graduation, as well as in the case of the doctorate degree, with a summa cum laude classification. And that was a special joy that I managed to find a theme that united my further Bible knowledge and the studies of natural sciences and mathematics. There was nothing else but the Bible analysis of Blaise Pascal, inherited in his work called Thoughts. Passing over this wisdom, the knowledge of the Bible, the knowledge of God, is something I have found the meaning of my life. As a former student and now as a professor. In connection with my years in Herceghalom, at the full-time education between 2001 and 2005, the first thing I can remember is gratitude. Deep gratitude for my professors, even though we were not in an easy situation. Not among so easy circumstances at the full-time course in Herceghalom. In winter time, there was quite cold, so many times our professors were teaching in their coats. Students were sitting in their coats on the lectures, while in the summers we almost boiled in the extreme heat, especially in the attic. The building itself had a bit of unfriendly character. That was rather dark, with few windows and open spaces, and the whole environment was not the most ideal. But of course, we enjoyed being there because we didn't focus on the circumstances, but on the high amount of learning material and countless humanity and support we got. But anyhow, I can say that the spirituality of the school and all we got there has been determinative for a lifetime. As a personal experience, let me add that I attended the college after graduating from a university. I've graduated from history major at the University of Sciences in Pécs, but the college also reached a really high level of standards, so I can say that it didn't lag behind much from the university. But let us go back to the construction of the college. As we have seen, not even in a half-ready state it was standing hopelessly, although operating in an own home would have been crucial for the college. The building in the Villányi Street, where, for the consultancy of the correspondent courses, rooms were rented, had to be given up on because the rent became as high as that was impossible to be paid. The following station was the University of Horticulture, also in the Villányi Street. But after a while, the rental fee was also raised, so that place had also been given up on. The Technical University became the following site for half a year as a temporary makeshift. Finally, they managed to find an appropriate tenement at the Faculty of Public Administration at the Corvinus University in the Ménesi Street, near the former building in the Villányi Street. That was the miracle of the Providence too. That site was suitable for the correspondence course, while the rental fee was also moderate. But the Faculty of Public Administration was later separated from the Corvinus University and was jointed to the National University of Public Services. That could have been sensed that the education activity of the college was not possible to stay there too much longer. For instance, in 2013, one needed to apply for the renting opportunity, and the answer came so long that even in August there was not known where the correspondence course is taking place. In the last minute, the opportunity was given to the rental. At last, the building in Herceghalom was sold, but its price was not dedicated to the college anymore, as that was mentioned before. From there, the full-time education had to be moved out in a closed period of time. As a temporary, fourth solution, a house was rented in Biatorbágy, where there was hardly any space. So, they needed the new building very, very much. Even in those grievous years, there was a memorable, so to say, nice experience. Spring came very slowly in 2013. There was always cloudy, even when that should have been time for a spring mood. And I can tell that my mood was also cloudy, since I always had the pressure on my shoulder that the previous period of 8 years was changed to an every 5 years of accreditation visit. Counting, the previous accreditation took place in 2008, so in 2013 was the year of the following one. There was an advantage that the board postponed that occasion to 2014 owing to the lack of time. But still, taking that into consideration, we felt really lost from the point of view of the infrastructure. Being aware of all that, in the spring of 2013, I was praying to God each and every day like this. My God, I do not even know from whom I could ask anything. There is no any human resource where we could turn to about the progress of the construction. Even until now, you have supported and you led us. Could you please give us just a ray of hope, however tiny thing it is, that we are not going to drown in this situation? And I actually asked from God, my Lord, give me when the first real spring day is to come, when the building could possibly be continued, even if we cannot do it, but give a little encouraging sign that still something is coming out of it. I clearly remember that was a Friday when the sun was shining really brightly from the very beginning of the day. And the same day, around 9 o'clock, my phone rang. I answered, and the husband of one of our church members was on the other end, saying, I am calling you because we decided with my wife that we give 3 million forints to construct the glass roof of the library room. Some days before, they visited us with his wife. We're taking a look at the building, and there was a special moving background how they had made that decision. You can imagine how I felt having asked our God, when our heart hurts not being able to build a school, just a tiny little sign to get. And that helped a lot, not to be discouraged and stay hopeful that someone we can carry on. I cannot count how many huge difficulties we were talking about so far. Until now, everything was solved at last, in the last minute. But has the construction of the college managed to move out from the deadlock? If we think about it, 2 decades have passed by since the foundation of the college, while almost 1.5 decades since the purchasing of the plot. But the college did still not have an appropriate home, while the appointment of the following accreditation was just to come. Miracles that God has made for our college must not be, and I'd not even want to rank. But still, I must say that what happened in the autumn of 2013 was one of the most wonderful assistances. Here, in this house, the teachers' meeting was held. We knew that the accreditation board was to take its visit the following spring, and that was almost stifling how many things we were not able to do that we would have been absolutely necessary. And among those problems, the most difficult was the infrastructure. The college should have moved into a new building in 2003. The construction was just started in 2008, and that was enough for the board, and we could carry on. But what could be said in the spring of 2014 that the new building was nowhere? So to this terrace I came out, and I said, just taking a deep breath and saying a prayer, and literally I remember how I was praying to God. I said, my God, I do not prefer saying, and even now I do not want to say that I cannot bear it any longer, but you are totally aware that neither the human power nor the strength of the man is infinite. And I'm asking you from the bottom of my heart that in this situation, when seemingly the end of the school has come, please give me a sign of hope. And I turned back to join the meeting when my phone rang. A church member called me, with whom I had never been talking to about the problems of the college. And without any introduction, he said, I am calling you because I decided to give 33.5 million forints to continue the building of the college. I couldn't say a thing. I just told him to call him back in the evening. Well, I called him that evening and asked him what his idea was to have come to that decision shared with me. He answered quite naturally, I have had it in my mind for a while that one day I am supporting the college. Now the time has come. Of course, I could not miss informing him how I was praying right before his call. And there was really a kind of experience that the prayer went up and the answer came back in minutes. Then he came out to Biatorbágy, to the structurally complete building. He took a look at that and very calmly said, now we are starting with the isolation of the building. We are painting it to be fine from the outside, and I am making one floor operational. Needless to say, that did not cost 33.5 million forints, but he did what he promised. And when the accreditation board came the following spring, one floor was really operational, and until then, the occupancy permit was also given for that floor. After that, everything speeded up. In the autumn of 2014, the correspondence course started here, and all departments of the college could move into the building in Biatorbágy. The unexpected support we have heard of arrived just at the right time, because the accreditation of 2014 interpreted a requirement that the number of lectures at the correspondence course must be doubled. That might have meant double rental costs, impossible to be paid by the college. Furthermore, in the previous school year, the building in the Ménesi Street was managed to be provided only in the last minute. In a new school year, that would not have succeeded for sure. In order to start the 2015-16 school year in the new building, a permission was needed from the Education Office. A special experience belongs to it as well. Clara Pinter, who directed and supervised the implementation, is telling us about it. In 2015, we also needed to get the permission from the Education Office, so the education could be started here. They set a date to come and inspect the school. I remember that we had a rainy day before, and we were really anxious because we had no chance to make the road proper for driving on it. That was a very interesting experience that not much before they arrived, machines came and started to reconstruct the road. I asked them for whose order they had come, because we had not ordered that. They said that the local council had directed them to repair the road. And there was also an amazing experience that by the time the board came, they could arrive on a relatively drivable road. At the time of the making of this film, in the autumn of 2019, the second floor, the dormitory area, the kitchen and the basement level were also completed. On the basement level, a classroom, a Bible museum, and a video studio have been developed, and the occupancy permits has been given to the whole building. Looking back, it seems almost unbelievable that from the different, bigger and smaller amounts and donations, the money was gathered for everything. It has been our pleasure that we have had students from abroad too through the years, primarily Hungarian young people from the neighboring countries, from Serbia, Romania, Slovakia. I'd specifically mention a Slovakian boy who has acquired the Hungarian language here in order to be able to study at the college. It is very good to remember all of them. I haven't listed that young people also from the Ukraine studied at us. But even from such faraway places they have come, as Congo, Nigeria, the South American Peru. I'm Franz Mutombo. I came to Hungary from Congo in 1997 directly to the Sola Scriptura College of Theology, where I was welcomed as a scholarship student. That time, the college was not here in Biatorbágy, but in Herceghalom. Comparing to the infrastructure in Biatorbágy, the conditions were quite difficult. But for me, who came from Africa, that was a top-level standard. That time, the idea of a different place for the college was raised. That was told us by director Zsuzsa Vanko, where the circumstances were much better. So we were expecting that very much, since that should have been in our time. We were excited to possibly move to the new building, to the new college. So we were waiting and waiting, as believers are expecting the Messiah, but that still did not happen. For me, that was not the infrastructure that was determining, but the enthusiasm and the high quality of the education. As for me, I felt like rather coming to a Christian community than coming to a college, where I could have received the knowledge as well as I could have developed in my faith, in the doctrines, and also practice my faith. That meant much more than the building of the education. The attitude of the people was helpful. The students, my friends, with whom we were studying together, were kind and supportive in a loving atmosphere. As for the attitude of the professors, they were examples to me. The best thing is when you don't only get knowledge from your teachers, but love as well. I may say that that was what I also got at the Sola Scriptura, arriving here as a student from a faraway and foreign land, as far as 8,000 kilometers from Africa. I did neither speak the language nor had any relatives, nobody to be by my side. And without that emotional and intellectual background, I might have had harder times.
Akkor biztos, hogy nehezebb éveim lettek volna. Nem mondom,
I would not say I did not have difficult times, but the spirituality softened the problems. I had my first basics to the learning of the Hungarian language, and those basics were seasoned with love and professionalism. The college did its best to provide peaceful and appropriate conditions to my Hungarian language learning. I could also study theology with good results. And one final thing. The man I have become during and after the college years and in life has a lot to thank to the college. Presently, I am a leader of a civil movement, Foundation for Africa, whose aim is to support the children in need on the fields of education, health, and social care in Africa. I have benefited a lot to see these goals from what I learned during the college years. I am very thankful because it has been a really remarkable milestone in my life. I am Raúl Herrera Rasmussen. I'm from Peru. I would like to share what my experiences have been here in Hungary, especially at the Sola Scriptura College. Long time ago, I preached on the internet where I met someone who had studied at the Sola. He invited me. Of course, I am far not satisfied with my Hungarian, but if there is something I am satisfied with, is the knowledge that I received here in this school. After coming to Hungary, I was afraid of the change, for that was a huge change. Everything new: culture, language, food, people. But thank God, He helped me. I would like to emphasize that the relationship with the professors, the students, and the members of the school staff has been perfect. It has been a huge blessing to me in each and every sense. If I have just heard that the best school is here, I would start studying here again. All of the foreign students were integrated. We liked every one of them. We knew that was good if they go back to their countries to apply what they had learned. But all of them have a living vision in my mind until this day. I would also like to make a notice that our college could not have survived without so many loyal colleagues. First and foremost, I have to mention the professors. All of them did their job with enthusiasm. If not mentioning them name by name, but their reward is the positive feedback from the students, and that the college motivated them to make further research, extend their knowledge, and appreciate the Bible even more and more. I am listing the general secretaries and the leaders of the study department. They had to struggle with the ever-changing laws and different provisions. And they had to keep the order in the work of the study department, and the general secretaries had to cover the working of the whole college with providing support in every field. I'm also mentioning the directors of finance, name by name, who were always doing their service with a high level of dedication, even among very low standards of finances. I can only say that so many more names should be listed, apart from the leaders, who were doing their jobs with loyalty and goodwill. In conclusion, after God, thanks and gratitude to all of them. I would also like to remember that we had such lecturers and other teachers who, knowing the difficult financial background of the college, were serving in the teaching faithfully without a penny in return for years. I also mention that a lot of believer brothers, together with many lecturers, donated high amounts for the operating of the college. There were brothers from abroad who regularly supported the college with their donations for years. It would be unworthy, not to mention those leaders of the Christian Advent community who have foreseen the importance of the college, who have taken the college seriously, and they supported it with their heart and soul. First and foremost, I have to mention Oscar Egervári, who was there by the foundation. For him, the college was just as important as the Christian Advent community. He was even teaching at the college. I would mention the name of Gábor Hites, who also patronized the school and was teaching at the college. Károly Sonnleitner must also be mentioned. He was teaching at the college as well. And finally, the two last presidents of the Christian Advent community must be mentioned, Ernő Farkas and the recent Antal Szabó, who can see the importance of the college clearly, globally, and supports the school in many different ways. We can always count on his understanding and support.